Now let's take a look at headlines on papers this morning. And joining me on Skype is in-house analyst Obaniyi Akinwale to help us make sense of some of the headlines now. Obaniyi, good morning. It's good to have you join me this morning.
Good morning, Mike.
Great. Now let's start from the Blueprint newspaper. Federal government on eased lockdown, danger lurking and treatment testing can't save us. Advocates self-discipline, increased awareness and enforcement. Extends ban on flight by 4 weeks. We can't risk local herbs now, Minister is saying that. Minister insists report on Kano mystery deaths not ready. Okay, you find all that on the front page of the Blueprint. Daily Times is next now, and this is on COVID-19. Federal government to dialogue with governors on Al-majirai movement. Appeals to Nigerians to desist from taking undue risks, and extends ban on local international flights by 4 weeks. Okay, Daily Times is what you see there. Daily Trust is the next one now. Lack of protective equipment. Doctors absconding from hospitals over COVID-19. Others isolated after testing positive. And no PPE, no work. Health workers are saying this. Will always make case for our members. NMA is saying this, and I'm very sure my guest will be interested in us discussing this when we are through. All right, from the Daily Trust, let's look at News Direct. COVID-19 again. Federal government extends flights ban to June 4. Airlines lose 17 billion naira. There's the minister revealing that. Lagos discharges 37 patients. And 260 returnees from Dubai to undergo self-isolation. And airline operators fault federal government's engagement of foreign carrier. All right, that's News Direct. From there, let's go to the national economy. And COVID-19 is the headline here. Experts suggest bailout as local airlines lose 17 billion naira monthly. Federal government to extend flights ban by 4 weeks. All right, that's the national economy. Leadership newspaper is the last one now, and he said, despite scary statistics, Nigerians still carefree about COVID-19. As the federal government is saying this, expresses concern over rise in health workers' infection. And medical union seeks speedy training of members. And PMB prays for Emir of Daura's recovery as the president. No apology over chloroquine recommendation. Bauchi governor is saying this. Mystery deaths not connected to coronavirus, says Jigawa government. We're investigating alleged mass deaths. Yobe government is saying this. ICPC releases guidelines for monitoring COVID-19 funds, and Dangote Foundation donates 1.5 billion naira to Nigeria UN COVID-19 basket fund. All right, all that on the front page of the leadership newspaper. Okay, now really very interesting headlines. Interesting not because it's sweet, but then a lot of things are really going on. Now, if you see the leadership newspaper, what you see on the front page right now, despite scary statistics, Nigerians still carefree about COVID-19. Now, from some of the reports we have that we have on TVC, certainly you and even other media station, even on social media, you see a lot of people going, joining buses and at the motor parks and the banks and the markets, and not necessarily taking caution on the advice by health, the NCDC and the Ministry of Health on people, social distancing and taking all the precautionary measures. But one thing that we see very visibly and obvious is the face mask. A lot of people still are using the face mask, which is a good thing, but we need, the NCDC is saying that more people have to adhere to these things. And in parts of the states, especially in Lagos, it is mandatory for anyone going out to the public space to use a face mask, and certainly that is expected to be adhered to as they get along. One of the areas that is lacking a little bit is the social distancing And when people converge in the banks or the markets or the motor parks or even in public buses and public places, and certainly that is what the government is urging Nigerians to adhere to. Now, if you see the headline on the Daily Trust, doctors absconding from hospitals over COVID-19, you recall that in Kano State, it was reported that more than 20 medical health workers have tested or had tested for COVID-19. And that is really scary on one hand, because the caregivers are falling victims of this. And a lot of them also complain from the reports we got that there aren't enough personal protective equipment, which is the PPE, what the overall clothes, the white overall clothes that you see are meant to protect all health workers, those who are involved with caring for those with COVID-19. And inadequate supply of those certainly puts the health workers on the front line at risk of contacting the virus. And if health workers go down, you know the implication of that. Now, the News Direct, on the other hand, you see what, again, federal government extends flight ban to June 4. And this is not just international flights. Also, domestic flights cannot take place right now. The only flights that can happen are emergency flights and necessary, the ones that are deemed necessary, like Nigerians returning from Dubai, and then on Friday we expect those from London, and then maybe sometime next week we expect those from New York to land. Okay, I understand I have Nii right now. Nii, it's good to have you join me. We've been having some challenges with connectivity. Now, let me take you to the story on the Daily Trust newspaper. They said that lack of protective equipment, doctors absconding from hospitals over COVID-19. Others isolated after testing positive. We're seeing more medical workers coming down with COVID-19, and the inadequate supply of PPEs is part of what is said to be the reason for this. Talk to us about how you feel about when you hear this headline.
Thank you, Mike. You recall vividly well that most times when the doctors are being inducted into the Medical Council Society, there is this oath of, I've forgotten the way they call it oath now, where they swear only to ensure that they protect the interest of the patient and to ensure that they save life, which is the Socrates or something. That's what the oath is being called. But nevertheless, the doctor never swear to put their life at risk, and they have never at any point in time said at the detriment of their own life, because first is safety, and they care God cures, or what have you. So it is not. We are not going to blame them for that. We're going to ask the NMA, the MDCN, USU, that what have we been doing all these days? Why have always been hearing them making noise about salaries, allowances, comments, and what have you, rather than asking that what is the state of our health? We need to ask questions as regards what is government agencies in terms of primary health care, what are the budget allocation meant for Ministry of Health is being used for. We need to ask various questions that what is the capacity of our doctor, the number of doctors we have. And I think, agree with me that it's only the living that can take care of the living. So, and knowing how dreadful this virus is, it is worthy to understand that, like President Jonathan said, that no life of Nigerian is worth his re-election. I also agree with the doctors that they also have families, they have loved ones. Putting their life at the fore for fight for all of us is a great sacrifice. Now, in a situation whereby the government or regulatory agencies are supposed to take care of them and not also doing what they're supposed to do, I think I agree with them. But what I would say is that we know this COVID is on as far back as December. We shut our borders as far back as February 27 or thereabout. Now the question is, why are we still short of PPEs? Yes, we know there is a global demand for PPEs across the globe. But the question is, we're short of reagents, we're short of PPEs. Are these PPEs not possible for us to locally manufacture? Is government thinking inward when the American government commissioned the G of this world to start manufacturing ventilators and what have you? Why can't we talk to innocents of this world, the GSC of this world, the Elizade of this world, to look at how can we manufacture? Why can't we go back to Aba and look at people that can generate these resources? Do we have the raw material to generate these PPEs? Absolutely yes. Do we have industries that can create these PPEs? Absolutely yes. Then what is delayed government instead of us buying rice, buying food for people that will carry the coronavirus and there will nobody to attend to them? Why don't we look in one such a way that we empower organizations and manufacturing industries that can provide this PPE for doctors so that doctors will be available? If we cannot contain the virus, if we cannot cure the virus, we should be able to contain the virus. And a doctor to many patients, if a doctor carry the virus unknowingly and is attending to other patients, we're going to have a spiral effect as regards the volume of the virus rampaging the country.
Right now, they're saying now that no PPE, no treatment. Certainly, health workers is a subtle way of protesting the short supply of personal protective equipment. Now, this is certainly going to put a strain on the seamlessness of attending to people, and from testing process to even attending to them. Now, what scenarios do you see playing out if this persists this way?
It's just like telling a pilot to go and fly when he's aware that the engines are off. So you ask, he has the experience how to fly the plane, he has the experience on how to navigate, but when the engines are not working, what will pilot do? So is exactly we're asking them, and there is an adage in my parent that says you can only send another man's children to the lion's den. You would rather not send yours. So if can the Minister of Health go and attend to a corona patient without PPE? Will the NCDC boss do that? Will the Dr. Aliu do that? So the question now is that we can't put this man lives at risk. And as much as we are not providing this facility for the doctors, what we are saying is that the fatality rate, we want to increase the fatality rate. What we are saying is that a lot of people that are even interested in coming out to assist in medical, the nurses, the midwife, and what have you, everybody will run away. You could hear a case of what happened to the musician that said the lady got electrocuted, but the fear of the fact that the lady might be corona infected, they didn't attend to that. A lot of death is happening that is not being recorded simply because hospital medical facilities are not well equipped with the PPEs. And again, the palliative for all medical facilities in this country at this moment is to ensure that there is sufficient PPE, even if they don't have sufficient reagents or testing kits. PPE must be mandatory.
Must be mandatory. All right. We have to leave it now. Thank you very much, Obaniyi Akinwale, for your time on the program. Time for the paper review now. Let's see what the headlines are across Nigeria. And I have with me on Skype analyst Obaniyi Akinwale. Ni, it's good to have you join me right now. Let's start with the Blueprint newspaper. Federal government on eased lockdown, danger lurking, and treatment testing can't save us. Advocates self-discipline, increased awareness and enforcement, extends ban on flights by 4 weeks. We can't risk local herbs now, the minister is saying that, and certainly some other riders there. From there, let's go to the Daily Times. COVID-19 is the focal point here. For the government to dialogue with governors on the Almajirai movement, appeals to Nigerians to desist from taking undue risks. All right, we have that. And then Daily Trust is next now. Lack of protective equipment. Doctors absconding from hospitals over COVID-19 is the headline there. Others isolated after testing positive. And no PPE, no work. Health workers are saying this. Will always make case for our members. NMA is saying that. Then the News Direct is next now. COVID-19 says, again, federal government extends flights ban to June 4. Okay, airlines lose 17 billion naira. That said the minister. Lagos discharges 37 patients and other riders there. National economy is next now. National economy says experts suggest bailout as local airlines lose 17 billion naira monthly due to the COVID-19. All right, Leadership newspaper. That will be good next. Now, despite scary statistics, Nigerians still carefree about COVID-19. The federal government is saying this expresses concern over rise in health workers' infection. Medical union seeks speedy training of members, and PMB prays for Emir of Daura's recovery, and certainly several other headlines there. But let's stay with the Leadership newspaper. This headline draws attention to some level of frustration on the part of government when it comes to people adhering to the guidelines and instructions and restrictions and all of that. He said, despite statistics, Nigerians still carefree about COVID-19. But it seems the government is not being able to instill the obedience or compliance to the restrictions. What do you make of this?
Yeah, Nigerians are just a replica of their leadership. You recollect vividly that the pandemic did not come into Nigeria, was only indexed on the 27th of February. There are cry here and there that Africa will be the epicenter for the pandemic, and there is need for Africa to quickly brace up to face the challenge. But you and I recollect that it took our government a whole lot of days for them to come up with the position of closing down the airports, to start testing, start getting the kits ready, and what have you. So, looking at the way the government has treated the pandemic, it's a replica of what our society looks like. And it amazes me that Nigerians we have come to realize that people prefer to die of COVID than to die of hunger. And when the COVID lockdown was on in Lagos, in Ogun, in FCT, all that was let loose, a lot of criminal activity here and there. Now, when they open up, we've seen the number of fatality, about 100 out of about less than 25,000, and yet people still feel this is a joke. Looking at various, with an example of what happened in Gombe yesterday, though the state government have refused the claim, looking at how people are moving around and romancing with people that are already infected in this asymptomatic patient, and looking at the footages we even have from Gombe Isolation Center yesterday, you could see vividly that Nigeria, we are not yet ready to combat this disease. And government relaxing the curfew, yes, it is needed, but the strict measure they said they will put in place to ensure that social distancing, use of nose masks, restricted movement, and what have you is not fully enforced. So if the government is unable to enforce its own orders and laws, how much more do you talk about the citizens? So Nigerian citizens are just a replica of the nation as it were. But it's unfortunate that if we're not careful, like the Professor Abayomi said, Lagos Commissioner for Health, he said, it is in our best interest to flatten the curve. If we refuse to flatten the curve, that we will have the spike. And the estimated number, like yesterday, Lagos is having about 82 infected cases. And if you look at the spiral effect of that 82, yes, it is charted 37, but notwithstanding, we need to tread with caution. And I think it's high time federal government do what is needful. If we need to lock down this, if we need to get the reagent, let's get them ready, the PPE ready. If we need to do also tests for everybody, let the government carry it out. But
all right.
It would be unfortunate.
All right, Nee, let me interrupt you a little, Nee. The point there is, when it comes to enlightenment, where the people should be self-aware and enlightened about what to do and how to do and when to do and where to do, a lot of messages are out there on radio and TV, on internet and all of that, but it is still not trickling down. The point there is, what can the people, the government on the other hand, what can government still do to try to reach out to people, especially at this time, even as at yesterday, when we conducted some reports, some people still don't believe that COVID-19 exists.
And because government is not living what they are preaching, except
all right, we seem to have lost that line there, Nee. All right. Obaniyi Akinwale was our analyst. And okay, I understand he's back now. Nee, are you okay? Go ahead. Go ahead. You were saying something.
Yeah, if we continue this way, a lot of things will continue to go bad. And you and I will agree that there is high time the government begin to do what is required and what is needful. It is not important for us to say we are locking down when we are not locking down. If you look at the gatherings of the who is in government, are they critically observing social distances? Are they using the nose mask to protect their nose and their mouth, or they're using it for fashion? Are police officers even putting on their nose mask? Are the law enforcement agency observing social distances? Are people enforcing this rule? So if government refuse to do what they need to do, it is obvious that the Nigerians will continue to live the way their government is living. But it's so unfortunate. Like I said, it is high time National Orientation Agency begin to do what their job is. News Agency of Nigeria go in now and begin to sensitize people on how fatal, if this thing continue to rampage this country, it is. But like I mentioned to you, Nigerians are replica of their leaders. And we cannot get it better until we begin to have leaders that stand by their word, put action to their words, ensure that people are disciplined. We require enforcement of lockdown or relax of curfew in Nigeria as a whole. And selective lockdown will not work. You could recollect what happened in Ekiti State, that the soldier wife sneaking from Katsina to Ekiti State. If these things are still happening, how much more? Nigerians will say, is it because it's a soldier that his wife can travel from Katsina down to Ekiti? Why can't I do the same? So what I'm saying in essence is that if government from all agencies, from all levels of government, all enforcement agencies carry this judiciously, Nigerians will respect the law. Then again, you can't lock people that you do not provide for down. People are losing jobs now, and they are going to look for a way to survive. They are going to look for a way to take care of their family, to fend for themselves. If there is no provision for this, there will be problem. There is hike in price of foodstuff and what have you, and the purchasing power is minimally low. So these are some of the issues that government needs to. You are only treating the surface, the roots. You have to treat it. An hungry man is an angry man. So when people are not hungry, they stay indoor. When they have a means of survival, they stay indoor. When government practice what they preach, then all Nigerians will ensure that we carry this out judiciously. And I pray this thing do not spike as being envisaged by the health practitioners.
Yeah, the instruction for people to stay at home and, adhere to all of those instructions are generally persuasive. But the point there is, it has come to a time where people are no longer observing or obeying these instructions. Now, what is the bigger one here? Is it the hunger that is preventing people from staying at home and government not being able to fill the gap, or the government's inability or the lack of capacity to instill this discipline and instructions?
It is multifaceted. It's our society as it were. You could recollect somebody posting on social media that people are going to banks to go and take tallies to queue for ATM withdrawals, whereas they don't have accounts in such banks. That is greed. That is wicked. That is callous. Then they will now sell those tallies to people that are coming late to get. It's a reflection of our society, our moral values. Where is our values? And you cannot have values in societies where things do not naturally work, where people are naturally hungry. When MBS gave us statistics that 82.5 million Nigerians are living below the poverty line. So when you have a situation like this, 82.5 million out of a 200 million, that is roughly about going to about 45%. So one rich man among 10 million, among 10 rich people, you see the unequalness in terms of palliative distribution. You see the rancor situation between Oyo State government and federal government on what is not distributed. You see the way the government of Rivers is doing. So it's as if as a nation we're not united in this front to fight the pandemic. When the federal government say this today, another state government come up with its own idea tomorrow. When they give this in Lagos State, will come up with its own law. When we do this in Ondo, it can come with its own law. So in every sphere, you see the nation is not so united in fighting this cause. And it's a reflection of the kind of leadership we have. It is high time our leadership sits up and do what is needful. They need to lead us right. So if people are led right, you provide what you are supposed to provide for them. Is it not that we're supposed to know that there is no PPE? After how long we said there is no reagent, there is no testing kit, now there is no PPE. Serious nations at this moment will not be grappling with the issue of PPE when you have agents that can provide it. If you empower a company in Abia, in Lagos, in Osun to provide PPE, you create jobs, you create means of people for survival. But when these are not there, the culture is people feed on daily needs and they don't have a means to survive daily. Then people are bound to react. And that's what we are seeing. And when people say that our leaders are living in extreme affluence when people are in poverty, there is no doubt who said, oh, you are in your house. Somebody said they have water, they have light, they have security, they have medical doctors, they have what have you. But Nigerians, do they have these facilities available to them? No, they have to look for it. So if Nigerians feel that our leaders are also feeling 20% of the pains everyone on the street is feeling, we are bound to comply. People are bound to ensure that we enforce this. But as much as our leadership are not showing extreme concerns and our information agencies are not going down the route to tell people why and how they will overcome this in terms of their financial power, will continue to languish in this kind of issue.
All right, we'll look forward to greater days ahead for citizens. Thank you very much, Obaniyi Akinwale, for your time on the program.